Hi, thanks for joining me again today. We're looking at Psalm 23. This is part 2 of 4 parts. Taking a couple verses at a time, looking at this incredible psalm and looking at some of the applications for us today. Today, looking at Psalm 23, verses 2 and 3. And let me just start out by reading these 2 verses. He lets me rest in green meadows. He leads me beside peaceful streams. He renews my strength. He guides me along right paths, bringing honor to his name. Last week, we looked at verse 1, which is a reference to the Lord being the good shepherd of the sheep. And in these couple verses here, we see that the good shepherd desires to bring honor to his name. And he does this 4 ways that are listed here. The first way is this: he lets me rest in green meadows. Second, he leads me beside peaceful streams. 3, he renews my strength. 4, he guides me along right paths. And again, these are 4 different ways that God brings honor to his name. And these are 4 promises that we have that we can hold on to each and every day as we follow the Good Shepherd. I remember years ago, I attended a conference. Pastor led a group of us through a method of prayer that he called the Contemplative Prayer method. And we looked at Psalm 23 as an example. And basically, we spent some time just reading over the verses. And then we spent some time reflecting on those verses and asking the Lord to show us just one thing, one word, one phrase out of that selection of verses. And it makes some observations and then takes that to the Lord in prayer, and then just to sit and rest in his presence. And Psalm 23 was so fitting, so perfect for that. And I remember that this phrase about him letting me rest in green meadows really standing out to me at that point in time. It still stands out to me today. It really speaks to me about God's faithfulness, about God's provision, that he doesn't take me out to a dry desert. He doesn't take me out to a hilly snowtop, although he could do any of that or all of that. But he really is intentional about leading me to a place that's full of life, and it's going to have nourishment. It's going to have things available for me to just to rest in the coolness of his presence in this green meadow, so to speak. Got a picture of this last weekend, and this was not intentional. It just kind of worked out this way that we had this trip planned to go through Yellowstone National Park, and particularly through the Lamar Valley on the north side of the park there. And I'm sure many of you guys have been through there, and you'll understand what I'm talking about here. There's a wide valley with this river running through it. In this section, it's pretty calm. It's flat. It's got mountains on either side that really protect the valley from the storms, at least in some measure. In this valley with all the green grass, there are just thousands of buffalo. Many of these buffalo had young calves along with them, just dotting the valley. So there's just never seen so many buffalo in one place at one time. And I commented to the girls as we were stopping to look that this is probably the only place in the world that this scene exists. The only place in the world where we can still find these animals in their natural habitat, free to do life as God has created them to do life, and without anything interrupting them except the strange guy with the camera like me just taking their picture from time to time. But just an incredible scene, and again, I think an incredible picture of Psalm 23. God created this space for the buffalo to rest in the green meadows of the Lamar Valley. And God leads these buffalo beside the peaceful Lamar River. And God renews the strength of these buffalo while the calves are still nursing from their mothers, and as they prepare for the coming winter. And there's not a better place for these animals to exist and to live out the life that God created them to live. This whole scene reminded me of Matthew 6, verse 30. This verse talks about wildflowers. We'll insert buffalo here, and I think it still stands. And it says this: if God cares so wonderfully for wildflowers, or buffalo, that are here today and thrown into the fire tomorrow, he will certainly care for you. Why do you have so little faith? And that question is rather probing as well, isn't it? Why do you have so little faith? We look at, again, looking at Psalm 23, that's the text that we're looking at, but, why do we sometimes doubt these promises that God made for us, that he will allow us to rest in green meadows, that he'll lead us beside peaceful streams, that he'll renew our strength, that he'll guide us along right paths? How often have we doubted God, that we've decided to make our own paths, we've decided to do things our own way? Did we find rest there? Did we find peace there? Did we find God's presence with us when we've gone our own way? Chances are really good we haven't. We have to do things God's way. We have to come back to him. We have to trust him. We have to have faith in him. He is the good shepherd who cares deeply for his sheep, as we looked at last week. In the days of COVID infections, of racial tension, of financial uncertainty, even the murdering hornets that were in the news a few weeks ago, the landscape might feel more lunar than Lamar. And yet the Good Shepherd will bring honor to his name. He does this by giving us rest in the middle of the chaos, by leading us to peace amidst uncertainty. He renews our strength when we're exhausted, and he guides us along right paths, even through the tension. I just want to remind you as we close out this time today to pray with open hands instead of closed hands. Again, the closed hands, really it's a symbol of us hanging on to our own ways, our own paths, and us opening up our hands and surrendering everything to the Lord really is that picture of surrendering to the Lord, giving him everything that we are and trusting that he has a better way for us than we have for ourselves. I just want to encourage you, maybe even to physically, during your prayer time today, to acknowledge what you've been hanging on to and confess that before the Lord, and then to physically turn your hands and open your hands skyward as a symbol of taking hold of what God has for you, of letting go what the world has been trying to get you to hang on to, and maybe it's a symbol of your surrender to the Almighty King, the Good Shepherd who cares for his sheep. Grace and peace to you. Have a wonderful day.